What's the secret to getting more customers? Is it an amazing lead gen tool? Is it paying for advertising? Is it cold calling? What's the best way to find more customers? Well, you might be surprised to know that while these things can work and they can be effective, there's actually a better way to get more customers and to get better customers. And the secret's actually found in the customers you already have. Hey, my name's Blake Benz. I'm the host of the Good Advice Podcast. Thanks for tuning into our show today. I'm excited to talk about this concept known as customer experience. I actually, funny enough, I didn't know this was actually a thing. It's something that has just made sense to me. And I'm learning more and more that there are entire businesses built around this. But the fact of the matter is this, that when you give your current customers a truly meaningful experience, when you truly do what you said you were going to do, it often leads to not just future business with that customer, but they also become amazing referral partners for you. I'm excited to dive into more of this today, but before we do, let's hear a word from one of the amazing businesses that sponsors the podcast. It's a humble little show, and we have some amazing business partners who like to advertise their businesses on the podcast. Of course, if you don't have a business and you want to support the show, you can always go to our Patreon. It's at patreon.com/goodadvice, where you can support the show for as little as $5 a month. All that to say, thanks for checking out the show. We'll be right back. Talk soon. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all of this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. So this isn't the first time I've talked about this on the show. It's something that when I think about the foundational pieces to the kind of advice I give to business owners, I think this is one of them that rises to the top. More often than not, I find myself having more and more conversations with my customers on simply the magic behind turning an everyday customer into a raving fan of your business. In fact, I think I need to check my LinkedIn headline. There was a season, probably like 2 or 3 years, where the main thing I was talking about on my business was, build your business into one that has 1,000 raving fans. And this was a concept, like I said, I've mentioned on the show many times. This was a concept that came from an article from a guy named Kevin Kelly. He put it out 20 years ago or something. And his article was called 1,000 True Fans. And it was an article that talked about if you want to run a 7-figure business, if you want to get to the $1 million mark in your business, you don't need thousands upon thousands of customers. You don't need tens of thousands of customers. You only need 1,000 true fans. And I think his language is pretty intentional here. I think also for those of us who we sell a product that is more niched or nuanced, or it's a higher ticket offer. I think about a friend of mine who he's in mergers and acquisitions. He'll do maybe a dozen transactions in a year. So he's going to help buy or sell a business about a dozen times in a year. So for him, if we're talking about 1,000 true fans, I mean, we're talking about, what is that, 100? And that's if every person is a true fan, right? Which not every customer will be. Sometimes you work with somebody and you realize after the fact that their expectations weren't aligned with your expectations. And even though, I think about one customer I had where we were working together from like a consulting standpoint. And he said, "Hey, now we're gonna do this collaboratively, right?" Because he didn't want to hire someone who's gonna just, say like, "Hey, do X, Y, and Z," and then like disappear. And I was like, "Yeah, we're gonna do it collaboratively." And what I was talking about was like presence, like we're gonna meet up, we're gonna hang out. Hang out makes it sound so so casual, but we're gonna spend time together, and we are gonna work on your business. In his mind, he thought I was going to be coming to his business every day and helping him run the business, and, helping him like figure out what to do. And I was like, man, you're talking about an employee, buddy. You're talking about someone who's gonna basically work for you and come to the office every day. But I didn't realize until after the fact that we had very different expectations on what the business was going to be like. But despite that, not every customer is going to be a great customer. Not every customer, unrelated to the quality of customer, you won't always do the best job you could have done. That's just the nature of business. Obviously, we should aspire to give a great customer experience, to do exactly what we said. Sometimes things go wrong, things go haywire, and it's not an ideal customer. That just happens, right? But in the case of my friend, if he's doing 12 transactions a year, we're talking 100 years of business to make it to 1,000 true fans. Now, this isn't just like an arbitrary number, by the way. Kevin Kelly, his article like breaks it down in terms of, repeat business and like what this one will look like for you. But the concept is still true. It's not necessarily about 1,000 true fans. It's about understanding the importance of those narrow few customers who you wow and give such a transformative experience to, that they love talking about you and your business. They love buying from you. They are insisting on paying you more. Instead of you writing them a thank you card for business, they're writing you thank you cards. People who, and I don't want to like sell this too hard where like you're thinking like your customers need to become like cultish for you. They're creating their own fan club around you, what have you. But in all honesty, I've had customers who have been so genuinely grateful in working with me that it almost feels a little backwards. I'm like, I should be thanking you. I should be thanking you for your business. But this only comes from doing truly meaningful work with your customers. I'm talking about this more today. I came across a podcast by Stacy Sherman. I think it's called Doing CX Right. You should check it out. She's got an amazing podcast voice. Absolutely worth listening to. And it's also got me thinking, checking out her podcast also got me thinking about another book I think I've mentioned on the show. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. And I think sometimes in business, there's things that we know we should do, but they're so under prioritized in our business that we never truly unlock the actual ROI from doing those things. And there's many examples that this applies to. When we talk about taking care of your people, no one is going to disagree with that. But few businesses actually take the steps to show appreciation, to show gratitude, to show value to their employees. And those few businesses actually then get to reap the benefits of retaining talent. Even employees who go on elsewhere and always talk about that one business that they loved working for. I went out to dinner with a couple and I found out that the wife had worked at the veterinarian clinic that I take my dog to. This is Stanton Animal Hospital, by the way, here local in Fayetteville. And I wanted to get the scoop. Hey, what was it like? Is my doggy safe? Tell me about it. And actually, I had not mentioned that I was a customer, but I said, hey, so well, how'd you like working there? And her face lit up. She was beaming. And she goes, oh my gosh, I loved it. What do you think that does to me as a customer? If I even thought about going elsewhere, it's totally out the window now. I'm like, I am for life going to be a customer here. And in fact, I had to take my dog there the other day. She had an upset stomach. She had to get some blood work done. Ended up being like around $200, which, by the way, is not the norm. Usually, it's a fairly inexpensive visit. And I was happy to pay that. I mean, I wasn't. Let's be clear. I wasn't happy to pay it, but I can tell you, I was confident in my spending because I thought, you know what? They do right by their people. They do right by their customers. And so they are deserving of every dollar that I'm going to spend. But anyway, only businesses who invest in their people ever see the ROI of something like that. Most businesses do the bare minimum. They, it's the obnoxious things. And by the way, if you've done these things, you're not a bad business owner. I think the reason these things get a bad rap is because people only do these things, and then the owner is frustrated that they aren't getting the ROI. So the businesses that do like Jeans Friday, hey, you can wear jeans to work on Friday. And I'm like, come on, dude, is your whole retention strategy around jeans? Or they do, the once a year pizza party, and they went to like the discount pizza place. There was one time there was a pizza party at the school I worked at, and it was like frozen pizzas, or maybe it was the discount pizza. I can't even remember actually now that I think about it. But and the employees always know, you're kind of like, okay, thanks, I guess. But it's always interesting. The businesses, they do the least that they can do, and then they're mad they never truly got the ROI from doing it. They never saw the benefit of doing it. I mentioned this is true in a lot of areas. If you think about social media, the businesses who commit to a social media strategy, they see the benefits of it. They reap the benefits of it down the road. Otherwise, business owners, they post one time and then they're mad that they didn't make any money off the post. Or I have some friends in the marketing world, and I've heard stories about, a marketing company that was hired to take over social media content. And then after like 2 weeks, the customer is mad that they didn't generate like all this revenue. And the customer doesn't understand like what kind of investment has to be made, not just monetary, excuse me, but in terms of like consistency. Same thing's true with podcasting. I think it's funny. People who post, they do 1 or 2 podcast episodes and then they quit and they're like, yeah, it just didn't really generate much for our business. You posted twice. There's like 30 million podcasts out there. You posted 2 times. People are consuming. Serial podcasters are consuming multiple shows a day. And so you have people who they don't understand the benefit of this stuff, or rather they're not understanding that what they're doing isn't actually generating the result that they want. I bring this up because in the business world, we often do what is the minimum required, like effort, to not have a customer give us a 1-star review. And I honestly, the way I differentiate it, I think of customer experience versus customer service. I think sometimes people say, I give great customer service. And I'm like, in your mind, you're thinking of, I was polite to that customer. I listened to that customer. I tried to make it right, which again, none of these things are bad things. Buying food for your team, pizza party, there's nothing wrong with it. It's that people stop there and they never put in the extra effort to actually show this is a cornerstone principle. This is something we really value in our business. So in the same way, I think that many businesses have a pretty mediocre customer experience process with their current customers. And as a result, they're confused as to why their customers aren't staying with them. My friend Brian Sexton, amazing sales guy, he has a book called People Buy From People. He's been in the sales world for forever and has so many great concepts. But one thing that he shared, he came on my show last year, and one thing he shared was how salespeople get it wrong, in that many salespeople, the way they approach business is they do just enough to not lose the sale. They do just enough to not lose the customer. And Brian talks a lot about like really turning that on its head. It's not about how do I not lose you as a customer? Like, what's the minimum to do to not lose you? I think, by the way, like some of these minimum things that businesses are doing, it's it's like the annual birthday card that comes on like a pre-printed thing and it's like a printed signature, or you get like the email, which I'm going to keep saying it over and over again. None of these things are bad. If you want to send me the $5 coupon for my next Andy's visit, I'm all about it, which I don't even know if Andy's does anything like this, but if you want to send me a coupon, I'm okay with it. But I think what's interesting is people do things like that, and then they're wondering like, why didn't my customers stay with me? Like, why didn't my customers keep buying from me? Like, why did they switch over to someone else, a competitor who charges less? Like, well, how did I get undercut here? Now, a lot of what people don't understand here is that when there isn't something meaningful about the experience with your business, what the customer naturally clings to then is price. Like, if I can't see the difference between two things, I'm going to go to the most obvious difference, which is going to be price point. We see this in a number of industries. I think it was Bob Sager came on my podcast a few years back who talked about this being in the hotel industry, how hotels today are just so similar to one another. They all have like the same amenities. They're all fairly similar in how they do business. And so when you book a hotel room, more often than not, you're looking at the cheapest offer within reason. Like, you don't want to go stay in a place that has like mold, for example, but you're mostly looking at price. It's a race to the bottom. And I think there's business owners out there who are wondering, like, how did I lose that customer? Like, why did they go with this cheaper? I mean, don't they know what we offer? And the answer is a lot of times, no. A lot of times customers, they don't know how what you offer is that much better than a competitor, or what you think is better is really not that much better. Or again, going back to the concept that many business owners do the bare minimum, we don't always realize that we're not actually nurturing the relationship like we should. And so we get surprised that someone goes elsewhere because, your customer like went out to lunch with someone else who like does what you do. They hit it off. That person has been curating a relationship for the last 6 months. And meanwhile, you've reached out to your customer one time in 6 months, and you're surprised that your relationship got supplanted by a competitor. Does this make sense? And none of this is meant to be like implying that business owners are lazy, or that I think there are people out there who are so driven by the bottom line that they are doing the bare minimum. They're all about churn. They're all about, I just need to get new customers to to cover up the customers that I lost. I don't think it's a very good strategy, but like I mentioned earlier, I think most business owners would agree that customers are worth investing into because of what they do for your bottom line. And more importantly, if you're really in the business that you're in to make a positive impact, that's all the more reason to invest in your customers, because you genuinely do want to see that impact made. I think it's that, again, we're not always honest with ourselves, and instead we do what we think is enough, and we don't always reap the benefits. Again, like posting on social media one time and being like, okay, yeah, it's important to me, but I'm not actually dedicating my time, attention, and resources to it. I think what it makes me think of is someone once told me that here's what strategy means. Strategy is not about business smarts or being able to read the market or know what tomorrow is going to bring. Strategy is being incredibly intentional on what you're going to spend your time on and what you're not going to spend your time on. I have people all the time, seasoned business people, whoever, people who know me, who we have conversations together, who will say, hey, you really need to be doing X, Y, and Z. And they will be earnest about that. You need to write a book. You need to, hey, you really need to offer a service about this or what have you. And for me, 90% of my strategy is deciding what I'm not going to spend time on. But on the flip side, part of my strategy is how am I creating that customer experience for my customers to turn them into raving fans of me and my business? I don't always get it right, but it is something that I dedicate intentional time and effort towards. And rather than thinking about what's the minimum I can do to keep this customer, I'm always thinking of what can I be doing more? How can I be showing more appreciation? How can I be more grateful? How can I show more gratitude? A lot of times we think this has to be something expensive. It doesn't. You don't need to buy your customer something like a Rolex watch to say thank you. In fact, for some of your customers, it might even come across the wrong way. But being intentional and intentional for what they care about, I can tell you right now, the people that I know, who I respect, and people I've done business with, I can tell you which ones of them do not drink coffee. I know exactly, literally name them off the top of my head. Rick West, Chuck Hyde, Brad Norwood. Now, these aren't people that I'm doing business with, but in terms of relationships, Rick, by the way, will be on the podcast here in the near future. And then Brad was just on the podcast, and Chuck's been on the podcast too, now that I think about it. So, and I think the point that they aren't customers of mine is all the more reason to hone in this point. I know that all three of them do not drink coffee. So you can know if I'm sending them like a card in the mail or I'm offering to hey, let's get together. I'm not going to say, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Because they don't drink it. And like being intentional in that, that is how you create a customer experience. What's that scene from, oh man, I can't even think about the show. There's a show, and I'm butchering the example because now I can't even think about the show's name, but it's a guy basically quitting his job. His dad dies. He quits his job. The reason he quits his job is because his boss, he has to take time off. His boss sends him like a bouquet, like a sympathy bouquet, and it has like pears in the sympathy bouquet. And in this scene in the show, the guy's quitting his job and he goes to his boss and he says, hey, I've worked for you for, 15 years. I've brought in 70% of our business's revenue, and I'm allergic to pears, yet you sent me pears anyway. And it just showed, he's basically saying, it just showed me that all the effort I've put in here, that it's not really worth what I thought it was, because at the end of the day, I'm not appreciated. I'm not valued. So in the same way, I keep track of these things because, and by the way, I don't always do this well. I'm fallible. I make mistakes. I think about, there's another friend of mine, Kelly Robbins with United Bank, amazing professional. She has two sons, Alex and Andrew. I have confused which one is which probably 3 times now. She just went on vacation to visit one of her sons, and I saw her at an event, and I was thinking I wanted to be intentional, so I was like, "Hey, how was your vacation?" And in the moment, I could not remember which son it was. So I said, "Hey, how was your time with Andrew?" And she goes, "You mean Alex?" And I was like, "Oh, moment lost. I missed an opportunity there." So now she's not holding it against me, but point is, you're not always going to do this perfectly, but it needs to be a net positive. It needs to be, more often than not, you are spending time being intentional with your customers because it makes a difference. And when we talk about like, even with your customers and without, and I mentioned the 3 people earlier who I don't do business with, I think sometimes when you establish these things as like the norms of how you do business, these are values we care about, you start to treat everyone this way rather than only doing it for your most profitable customers, only doing it for your big accounts, only doing it for people where there's an actual like immediate tangible ROI. Like when you do it for people who aren't even customers of yours, then you're showing that this is a value of your business and not something you're only doing to benefit your bottom line. But if you want to grow your business, you have to get serious about the customer experience and the engagements they have with you. There's a way to do this, by the way, where you maintain your credibility, you maintain your authority as someone serving them. You maintain your position as I'm the expert, and yet I'm expressing gratitude and gratefulness and showing appreciation to you, my buyer. But if you're ever going to grow your business in a meaningful way, this is something that has to be a priority. I've talked about Landers Toyota on the podcast too. My neighbor has bought 2 trucks from them. The only reason that happened was because he had had such a bad experience with other dealerships. And when he called Landers, they offered to come down from Bentonville or Rogers. Actually, I don't know which city they're in. They offered to drive down, pick him up, and bring him up to the dealership. He had such an amazing experience. He bought not just 1 truck, but 2 trucks from them. Customer experiences matter. And again, if your perception is I was nice to my customer, when they annoyed me, I did not chew them out, I responded to their email the same week that they sent it, then you should not be surprised when you don't actually get to reap the benefits of what this does for your business. Be intentional, be genuine, and go the extra mile. Sometimes in business, you don't actually, this is a wild thought. You don't have to be the actual best in your industry. Now, you should always be learning and trying to be better, but you don't have to be the actual best. But if you are putting in a little bit more effort in being appreciative and crafting that experience than your competitors, it will pay off in huge dividends. Hey, that's today's good advice. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. If you're not following the podcast, what the heck are you waiting on? Click the subscribe or follow button so you can keep getting good advice wherever you are. Don't forget, we do have an ad slot at the start of every episode. You can always reach out about it, blake@goodadvicecoaching.com, or you can support our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. Thank you to all of you who support the show, who keep it going, and who see the value in the good advice we're giving to people every week. That's today's good advice. We'll catch you later. See ya.